Welcome to ABCD, the visual development platform for Salesforce.com. ABCD supports Lightning components and Visualforce pages, and it provides a drag and drop builder platform to quickly assemble Lightning components and Visualforce pages through drag and drop. No coding is needed, just drag and drop. Let's take a look at the Visualforce builder in this session. The Visualforce Builder allows you to do two things: create a Visualforce page or modify an existing Visualforce page. Let's start creating a simple page. To create a page, you require to supply three properties: label, name, and object. I'm going to call this ABCD demo page. Based on that, the name is auto-calculated, and then I'm going to select an object on which this Visualforce page is dependent on. In this case, I'm selecting account. Let's continue. Once you continue, you are brought into the drag and drop builder itself. So let's orient ourselves a little about this tool. On the top left corner, you see the logo. Next to that is the name of the page that you're currently editing or creating. In this case, we are creating the new page. On the top right corner, you see a set of actions: the home, help, page properties, preview, and of course, save. On the left side, you see a palette for components, and the components are organized into different categories like blocks and sections, forms, headers, things like that. And you also can filter these lists to quickly identify the component that you're interested in using. Just keep typing and the list would automatically filter out and show you all the applicable components that match your filter criteria. Well, let's go ahead and start build a page. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop the library component. The library component is the basic. It's the glue between all the different things we do in ABCD. It connects you to the basic style sheets, the JavaScript files, the Apex controllers, and the contextual information. Well, once you drop a component on the canvas, the properties panel will be shown on the right side and the component panel is hidden to better use the real estate. At this point, I don't want to make any changes to the properties. I'm simply going to accept in their basic state. The next thing I'm going to do is add a page header. And of course, as you notice now, I see a different set of properties, very contextual to the component that you're currently working on. I'm going to leave it as is, or maybe I will add the word demo to the title and accept my changes. Once you have added some components to the canvas, you have a few things that you can do. The first thing is you can expand and collapse the component to better use your available real estate. And you also can reorganize them, however you want it. And this is available for the whole page. You can move it anywhere you want it, reposition, reorganize. And you also can go back to the properties of a component by clicking the settings button at the top right corner. And when you go in there, you will be brought to the same properties panel and you can make adjustments as needed. Well, let's start building it out. The next thing I want to do is I want to add a form to my page. I want to give it an ID F1. I'm not touching any other properties. I'm going to leave them as is. Then I'm going to use a custom component that comes from within ABCD called grid. So the grid component allows you to divide your screen into multiple columns so you can organize your data elements, your UI elements cleanly into different columns. I'm going to add two columns here. The first one, I'm saying the column span is 2. That means this column would be twice the size of the next available column. Let me add a second column with a column span of 1. Now you see the second column is half the size of the first column. And of course, everything in ABCD is drag and droppable. What I mean by that is you can take this and reposition it to the beginning if you want, okay, or vice versa. So in this case, I'm going to move it back to the right side and leave it there. And then for the first grid column, I'm going to add a block. I'm going to give it a title. Let me call it block 1. And I'm going to take a different display mode, inline edit in this case. Let me save it. Then within a block, I'm going to drop in a section. This would be the section for the fields. I'm going to call it section 1, and I'm going to say this is a one column section. This is collapsible. Also, I can go back now and add the fields to the section. When you click on the Fields tab, you see all the available fields, and of course these are the fields related to an account because I have chosen account as my base object for this page. At this point, all I do is drag and drop account name, account number, account phone, account site, and of course maybe account rating. I am done. After once I have added the fields, I have the full freedom to rearrange them as I want, and you can do it anytime while you're creating the page, a week from now or a year from now, and you can go back and always adjust it. In this case, I just want to keep them account name, number, site, and of course phone and rating. Well, let's go back to the second grid and add some data. I'm going to add another block into the second grid. I'm going to call it, let's say, block 2. Of course, I'm going to make it inline edit, display mode. Then I'm going to throw in a section within that. Let me just call it section 2. I'm going to say it's a one column section, collapsible. Let me add the fields into this. I want to add account facts, account source, account type, annual revenue, and maybe billing city. Well, again, as I said earlier, you have the full freedom to rearrange them the way you want it. You can do it anytime. Well, at this point, I have added quite a bit of content to my page. Let's quickly save the changes and take a preview of the page and see how it looks. So once you come back to the page, so this is the result of the page that you have built so far. Okay. Now you see that you have divided your UI into two sections. On the first one you have block 1, on the second side you have block 2 with all the standard fields. And of course the list goes on within ABCD. You can add a variety of things like tabs, smart lists, a variety of custom and standard components you can. And as well, ABCD being a drag and drop builder platform, you would be able to roll in any component. Could that be a standard Visualforce component, custom component, a lightning component, or a partner or a third-party component, and bring them into the builder, make it drag and drop enabled literally in minutes. There is no restriction, and ABCD supports the past, present, and future components. So this would be a one-stop builder framework that you would end up using for a long time to come. Having said, now I'm going to make my page dynamic. So I want to make my Visualforce page responsive to user inputs. Things like when user selects a value in a drop-down list, I want to show some additional fields. If not, I want to hide them. Well, we can do that readily with what we call the display rule. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define a display rule to show the grid column 2 only when the account rating is chosen as hot. So that is what I'm going to do. To do that, the first thing I'm going to do is go back to the account rating field and give an identifier, AR in this case. Then the second part, I'm going to my grid column and instrument it to make it display only when the account rating is hot. In all the other conditions, this would be hidden. And of course, the syntax here is very standard Salesforce, nothing custom or proprietary here. If you have done Visualforce once, you know it how to write it, or you can just copy paste it from many available sources out there. Let me just quickly accept my changes, save my changes, and refresh. If everything goes well, I should see the second column hidden completely at the beginning. Let me just refresh my page. Sure enough, I see only block 1, and of course block 2 is hidden. My intention here is when the user selects hot, I want to show it, otherwise I want to keep it hidden. Well, let's go back, take care of that. So let me quickly collapse my sections and blocks here so I can make some room for me, and then I'm going to drag and drop the display rule. So the display rule is a construct that will instrument anything to be able to drag and drop, as well as make it dynamic. So the first thing I'm going to do is a display rule takes four properties. The first one, it takes the name for it. I'm going to call it display rule, dr. Then it says what field this rule should kick in. And of course, if you remember, I have identified my account rating with an ID AR. And then I'm going to define the trigger event. I'm going to say you look at the value field account rating and trigger it when the value changes, and of course you impact the whole form so the dynamic sections and blocks can be rendered back and forth. Let me just quickly save my changes and come back and refresh it. If everything goes well, my page should be dynamic, and again within literally a couple of minutes. Let me just test it out. I want to go ahead and select a value of warm for my rating. Well, system is doing something, but I still don't see my column 2. Let's try cold. Same. Let's try hot. This is when I expect to see my second column. There you go. You got a new complete set of section coming up because the user has selected hot. Let's say for some reason user goes back to a different value than a hot. While the UI is smart, it identifies the change and responds to the user inputs, and based on selections, clicks, and events, things like that. Well, let's also take a look what is happening in the background, right? So ABCD produces and consumes Visualforce in its native form. What I mean by that is what we produce or what we read is standard Visualforce. Let's take a look at and see what is happening to the page. Let's take a look at the markup. So the ABCD tool is literally writing the Visualforce markup for you as if a seasoned developer is writing it. A few interesting things. It is standard. You can look at it, you can edit it, you can modify it, and you can see exactly what the tool is building. But the beauty of this is the tool is writing it in a very compact form. It is writing in a very optimized way. It is making sure all the best practices are implemented. So you always end up getting the same great quality output every time you want. And of course, another interesting feature I'm going to show now is unlike few other tools out there, with ABCD you not only can see the generated output, which is very standard 100% native on Salesforce, you also can edit the pages outside the tool and bring them back into the system for additional enhancements. Well, let's take a look at it. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to edit my page outside the tool, and I'm going to introduce one more new field in the first section and then see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to here is I'm going to go back and add a new field here. I'm going to select and add account industry. So I'm going to add a new field, industry, towards the end. Okay, let me just save my changes. And I'm also going to introduce one more item. So I want to do two things. The first thing is I'm introducing a new field called account industry. Then I'm also going to introduce a new section. I'm going to call a new tag. I'm going to call it my tag. And of course, Visualforce being nothing but HTML, XML markup, it would accept any tag. There is no limitation. I'm going to call it, this is a test unidentified tag. Okay, let me just do that. Let me quickly save my changes. Then I'm going to go back to the app builder, and this time I'm trying to edit an existing page, ABCD demo page, which I just created. I go to the modify section. There I see the ABCD demo page. I bring it back to life, and a couple of interesting things happening. Let's go to the block where we added the new industry field. Well, it identified the field, and of course it is completely available to you as if you have added it through the builder. You can make all the great changes and manipulate it the way you want it. Let's also look at the second tag we added. So we added something called my tag. The system knows this is a new tag or a new component, and it tells you and it reads it. It says, hey, there is an unknown component. I'm looking at it. I could not recognize it, meaning it is not finding a definition for that component on the left panel, but it allows you to use it. And guess what happens? If you recollect, this was at the beginning right below the section heading. So ABCD would not let you change the properties of it because it does not know it, but it will allow you to reposition it. So now I basically pushed it below the form. Let me save my changes. And when I come back and refresh the page, you would notice that it would be moved from before the form to after the form. So that is one of the great ways, how ABCD keeps you, and it never locks you into anything where you don't want to be. So even if there are components that are available in Visualforce or custom or from a partner that are not readily instrumented in ABCD, you still would be able to use it. The tool still recognizes it. The tool still lets you rearrange it, reposition it, but it won't let you manipulate the properties until you have a definition added. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you can roll in any component into the drag and drop builder literally under a few minutes. So that's the real power of it. And at this time now you notice it is basically came down after the form, not the beginning anymore. So the ABCD tool gives you a variety of capabilities as we have seen, and of course we are constantly evolving it. There are more and more capabilities coming in. So if you have any questions or comments or want to know more, do reach us at info@clarisoft.com. We also have ABCD Lightning Component Builder, and I will be covering that in a subsequent video. Make sure you check it out as well. Thanks for your time, and I really appreciate it. Have a nice day.